Welcome back. Today we're going to continue talking about Oracle SQL, working with the idea of how we can work with data a bit more effectively, specifically how we can do conditionals. When we're doing conditional operations in Oracle SQL, we're going to use the case operation, or the case operator, or the case statement. This is a way powerful way of actually doing stuff within Oracle, or using SQL queries, so we can have an evaluation that has a lot of conditional operations. It's much better, especially when we're working with using a null value. I think this should be the default choice instead of using even MVL, because it can actually give a better set of values for it, because you can actually process and handle information better. So let's take a look at the case structure. So I have an example right here of just the structure of the case statement. So a case statement, we have the beginning keyword case, we have the ending keyword and then we, of course, because anytime we're using a function or something that's going to change what we display, we have to use the as on that because we want to make sure we properly demonstrate what's being shared with the results. And so in this case, it's the named result. Inside the case, we have a series of either whens or when else. So of course this works the same way when we're talking about like an if-else block in Java, Swift, C#, C++, etc. And we have to make sure we organize our when blocks accordingly, because once you pass a when, you're not going to go into anything else, or if you fell an end, you won't come back up to it. It's just boom, then boom, then boom, then boom. So make sure you organize those properly. Think about the design you're working with before you actually structure those questions. So our first when block, it says when and then some tested condition. This is something you can be a complex condition, it can be a simple condition. This can be on multiple columns, etc. But it has to be a condition itself, so something returns true. So if this returns true, then I will perform this result. If it fails, then I come down to the next clause or next part of that case statement, which is the next when block or when clause within it. And that when will then again have some other tested condition that will be different than the previous one. I know, different is weird. And then again, we have a then and we have some other result. Notice my note up here that these types themselves must match. Whenever you're using a case block, you need to make sure that all the then results are of the same type, or it'll throw an exception saying, hey, those don't match the actual thing. You have to make sure that one's a number, one's a string. Make sure when you're talking about the design that those results on there are the same type. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Now, if you do want to add an else block, some default case, all you have to do is just after your last when, you add the keyword else, and then a matching type right here of what you're putting inside that. And that would be, of course, your default value to make that happen. Again, I always like to have my clauses organized with a left alignment for my thing and then indented in for each additional step to make it so it's really easy to read for humans. Because when we're talking about writing code, we're writing code again for us, the human, not for the computer. So again, to do conditional operations inside Oracle SQL, we make sure we have the case. Each type of thing we're looking for gets its own when block attached to it. We stack those when blocks in the order we want them to be executed, so make sure you have them so they actually make logical sense. If you have an overlap on that, it's going to cause some logical problems and things won't get matched appropriately. And our last block, if we do want to have a default, we use the else keyword, followed by the default value we want to have as the result. And again, this, and this must all be the same type, or it will not execute properly. So you need to make sure you actually get the correct values for that when you're working with a conditional statement by using the case end structure inside Oracle SQL. That's it for now. Thanks again. Have a great day. Cheers.